Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have conversations with fellow freelance models. Today, I have Dakota Simone on the line, and we finally got to meet in person, also at Muses in Wonderland, which is a place where I've met so many people that I ended up having on the show. Say hi, Dakota.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me, sweetheart.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. I love doing these podcast episodes because I feel like every time I do one, I get to know the person I'm talking to a little bit more.
Agreed. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so you are based in LA and you do traveling quite a bit.
I do. Like about once a month, I'll like do a little tour and go see the world, go on a little adventure. I love that.
Sweet. And I do also love the adventurous vibe that I get when I look at your Instagram posts. I think the first time I saw you on Instagram, because that's basically where I live on the internet, is Instagram. I think a lot of us basically digitally live there, but I love your adventurous nature, and I love the playfulness that I see in a lot of your videos and your photos. But you also do a lot of really cool, like high quality photographic modeling. And so I've just been intrigued by everything that you do. And I'm like, I see that you do like really bendy stuff, you do some cool dance stuff, and you just have all this talent that I think is amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. When I first encountered you on Instagram, I thought honestly the same thing about you. I loved how like playful you were and just how funny like your personality really shined through your
Aww.
posts. And I was like, wow, I really like that aspect.
Thanks. I feel like if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And some people might be taking themselves a little bit too seriously. So when I see somebody else that does like similar types of modeling that also seems to have fun with it, I'm like, this person is cool.
I agree.
So for the people listening, and for me, I suppose, I would like to hear how you first got into modeling and how your career has progressed until where it's led you to where you are today.
Oh, that's a great question. I first got into modeling in 2019. It was the spring of 2019, and I had just moved to Los Angeles. I was in Denver for like a year, just, like adventuring, seeing the world out. I was like 20 something. So I moved to LA with my partner, and a lot of my friends were models, so they like took me to their photo shoot. But how I got into nude modeling is some of my friends are like, "Man, you really should like try the modeling, try this modeling." And I saw like a group shoot happening on Craigslist. Like this sounds so sketchy now in hindsight, but there was a group shoot that was happening on Craigslist. So like I emailed them because I saw the pictures that they were creating, and they looked good. They were artistic nudes, and had no idea what artistic nudes were at the time. I just thought, well, these people look cool, like a Renaissance painting. So I
Cool.
emailed the organization. I sent them this long email like, "Hi, I really want to get into modeling. Like, I've done a couple photo shoots, but I'm pretty much inexperienced." And they were just like, "Oh yeah, come on down. Like, we train models, like da da da." So I went to that, and that was my first nude shoot. And I was so nervous, and they told me beforehand it was gonna be nude, and you could tell by the pictures, and they wanted to be very clear. They're like, "Hey, it's a nude shoot. I mean, you don't have to get nude, but it's preferred." And yeah, so I went, and it was like very nerve-wracking, and I loved it. It was amazing. And then on top of that, like I got paid, and I was like, "Oh my God, like this is a thing." So I was kind of hooked ever since that. And that was just like really awesome. And it's really helped me with like networking because I live in the city. So, like, around that time, everyone was doing it because this was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, it was just like really easy to get started and to like build your network. And I made a lot of friends that I'm literally still friends with who are models, and it has been just a wonderful, wonderful journey. And it has like opened so many doors for me. Like from that, I got to do music videos for like Doja Cat and Justin Bieber. And I've also been in Playboy. That was really fun. And I've got to work with a lot of cool brands out here, like designers and whatnot. And it's just been like such a really fun journey. And I never thought that I would be able to do this. Like, I never aspired to be a model. It just kind of happened. So I'm really grateful. It's been so fun. I've gotten to travel out of the country. Like, it's been such an amazing time.
Wow, that's really cool. So your first nude shoot was a paid gig. That is really cool. Not everybody can say that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, and honestly, it had to be paid, or I wouldn't have still done it. Like, because
Right.
I was so nervous.
So it was a group shoot? Like how many people were there?
There were a lot of people. I want to say there were like 8 models, and there were like, oh, there were a lot of photographers. Because I remember there was one point I was like, I don't think so. This many people have seen me naked at one time. I want to say it was like over 10 photographers for sure. And yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, but like, everyone was so nice because like how in the industry, like people are so kind and like the vulnerability that it takes to do that, people really, treat you right for that. And like they're very kind and encouraging and uplifting. So it was a really nice space and I felt so safe.
That's good. I mean, not everybody can say that they had a good experience for their first nude shoot, so I'm glad that yours was good, even though you said it was nerve-wracking. Can you tell me, like, when it came to doing the nudes for the first time, like, did you have any, like, hang-ups? Like, were you worried about family or potential employers or anything like that?
Yes, of course. I was like digging through your Instagram, and a lot like you, I came from a very, very strict childhood. I'm from Texas, and I'm from like
Mm.
the Bible Belt, and my
Oh my
family
God.
actually like they're very religious, like super religious. So yeah, I had a ton of hangups. I remember even talking to my boyfriend before the shoot. I was like, I don't know, like, should I do it? Like, I'm gonna be naked and I'm gonna be taking pictures, and it's probably gonna be posted on the internet. And he was like, if you want to do it, I think you should do it. Like, I think you'll be great. And I think you're going to be very successful, in whatever you do. And that kind of like gave me motivation. I mean, a lot of times in the beginning of my career, he gave me a lot of motivation because, you kind of get imposter syndrome where you just like doubt yourself, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of reservations like about my family and whatnot. But I kind of got over it.
That's good. Do you mind if I ask if they know?
They do know, especially since I was in Playboy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was so happy to be in Playboy. So I'm like, okay, yeah, like of course I do need modeling. Like I'm in Playboy. But my mom has always been like super open and accepting. She's not as strict. It's really like her side of the family that is super strict. So like around when we're around her family, they are kind of like, little side eyes, but they still love me. It's just, they don't understand. So
Yeah. I know it's understandable, but I think maybe being in Playboy actually probably legitimizes your nude modeling career because it's a major publication.
I think it did. I think, people are like, oh, because, Playboy also is like their brand. It's worldwide and it's like identifiable. And people are like, oh, it's Playboy. Nobody thinks anything bad of Playboy, which is good for them. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And so I guess the not understanding part is, I suppose, understandable because I mean, freelance modeling is kind of it's a hard thing to describe how it works to other people that have only understood modeling as like you need an agent and
Yeah.
you have to be in magazines and like doing runway and stuff.
No, I agree. Yeah, a lot of people do think modeling is that. Even myself, because like you, I'm really tiny and petite as well. So when my friends were like, "You should model," I'm like, "Model? Like I'm 5'2". There's no way. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes, I'm also 5'2", and I had the same hang up. I thought I had to be taller, but unfortunately, there's a lot of variety within the nude modeling specifically. It doesn't really matter as much like what your height or like shape is, as long as you're willing to get creative, I guess. I want to take a short little break to tell you about Model Society. ModelSociety.com is a website dedicated to featuring figurative fine art photography for models and photographers. What makes them different than other portfolio hosting websites is that some of those other websites will still host kind of tacky photography or exploitative photos. Model Society screens all of their contributors for quality and authenticity. So you only get the best of the best on there. If you're not a photographer or model, you can still enjoy and appreciate Model Society because they also have newsletters and magazines featuring their best work and new articles each week. Check it out, modelsociety.com. I will also include a link to Model Society in the show notes. All right, now back to our show.
Yeah, and like use one thing I like about art modeling, it's like you use your body type, like it's like your medium, like so it's like you can create different images like with different body types, and like everyone is like so beautiful, and that's what I do like about nude modeling. It's just like it's everyone's accepted.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to just be a clothes hanger for like some fashion.
Literally, a clothes hanger. That's good.
Yeah, not to shit on the fashion industry or fashion models in general, but I think that just their strictness on how skinny and tall you have to be is, I think, basically because the clothing that they're showing like is supposed to look like that on their fashion runway models. You know?
Yeah, the sample sizes are really small for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had an agent?
No, I have not. I At the beginning of my career, I thought I wanted one, but then I just, heard horror stories. So I'm just like, you know what? The freelance is treating me pretty well. I'll just keep doing it myself. I'm
That's
kind
good.
of like a do-it-yourself kind of girl.
Oh my gosh, that is so important.
It really is.
I find that in order to do freelancing anything, you have to be the kind of person that can work from home, do your computer work on your own time and, schedule your trips and all of that.
Yeah, it definitely does take a lot of like self-motivation, organization, and you just, yeah, have to be motivated to do that yourself or nothing's gonna happen.
I gotta say, when it comes to my perception of Los Angeles, I view it as such like an intense place. Like I assume that there's a lot of competition, and from my experience in the past traveling through there, I had found that it was harder to find paid work because it seems that a lot of people go to LA to try and make a name for themselves. So there's a lot of people doing TFP. Have you experienced that?
I haven't, well, in the beginning, I understand like what you're saying, like the competitiveness. I remember when I first moved here, like every day I would wake up, like there's just like some energy here and it just like makes you want to do something. Maybe it's like the illusion that like, oh, today could be my next big break or something. But I do find that LA, it's an interesting city. It's one of those cities like you have to know people. And that is how you can move about in the city. Like my first 2 years of modeling, I'm not gonna lie, they were my hardest because I knew no one. And yeah, like nobody really wants to shoot with you when you're a nobody. When they don't know you, you haven't worked with this, and that. So it was really tough at the beginning, but I do find the longer I live here, the easier it gets. And the more it just rewards me because you just know people. And like you said, like so many people are trying to make it. So it's like people that are like fashion designers, they'll like hire me for a shoot, or even like I have this one person that I met at a shoot who makes wigs, and like her wig, she hired me to model for her brand. And it's just like it's who you know. Like you really get things by who you know. So you have to like stick around and network for sure. So that's how it has like shown me favor, just by being in things, meeting people, networking, and just being available too.
That makes a lot of sense. I suppose just putting a travel notice up there and not really having connections in the city, like other cities, like you go to Ohio or like Tennessee or whatever, you just pop up a travel notice on Model Mayhem, and then people might hit you up that way. But on in Los Angeles, it does seem that sometimes people just have last minute availability, or they're not willing to schedule something 3 months into the future because they don't know what their schedule is going to be like. So I guess I've sadly avoided Los Angeles a lot because I haven't really, I suppose, taken the time to network there and have that amount of success like you have.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of my I want to say like 75% of my LA shoots are last minute. Like somebody just like texting me or reaching out to me, being like, hey, are you available today at 3 for this shoot? Like paid, And it's like, oh, yeah, I am available actually. And that is very true about people. not wanting to book things so far in advance because like I'm actually the same way, especially when it comes to LA. Like people will be like, when will you be in LA? And I'm like, actually, like I live here, but I travel so much. Like I can't tell you that I will be here, like that far in advance because if something comes up, I'm gonna go travel and do that. So it is kind of one of those cities you definitely just have to stick around for a bit. Like around year three, like stuff started to turn in my favor and it got better. But only because I feel like networking, like with Playboy, how they found me is I modeled for this brand called Corn Hoodies. It's an amazing brand. And I modeled for them. They had like I'm a pole dancer. So they had like a pole dancing shoot while we wore their merchandise. And his girlfriend had posted me on her story because we were pole dancing together. And I guess Playboy had been scouting that girl, and they were like, "Oh, who's this other girl in your story? Like, can we reach out to her and ask her if she'd want to shoot for Playboy?" And that's literally how it happened for me. And I'm like, "Wow, if I would have never gone to that shoot, I would have never had that opportunity to be seen." And that's just like
Wow.
a summary of how LA works. You do one thing, and then you meet this person. It's like, "Whoa, I never knew you did that," and like this could come of that. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah. No, that does make sense. The scout for Playboy saw you on your friend's Instagram story.
Yeah,
Wow. That's so cool. And that's just the power of social media, you know?
it really
Sometimes
is.
when I'm sitting there, like engaging on social media, I'm just like telling myself this is important, this is work. Other people just think by looking at you that you're just wasting time on your phone, but like making story posts and tagging your friends and responding to comments, it's important. Like we all have to do it to survive in this industry.
It really is, and people really don't realize that. I was on an interview like yesterday talking to like some marketing people who weren't like content creators, and like they just were like flabbergasted when I was just telling them like how often I use social media, and they were like, "Well, do you use it in your personal free time?" And I'm like, "No, like it's my work. Like I use it for work. I'm like in my free time, it's the last thing I do is go on social media. It's really funny."
Yeah, I guess that brings me to another question, though, because you do put a lot of your personality into your modeling and your social media presence. Do you feel like there's like a line where like your online persona ends and then like your personal life begins? Or like how much of your true self do you feel that you share on your social media?
I share my authentic self, like my personality and everything. That really is me. But as far as like the line, like obviously I don't share like personal details. Like I'm really big on like not really posting my family just
Right.
because not like anything negative. It's just like that's just something that's personal to me that I wouldn't really want to, share with the world. And especially, like the line of like work that we do, it's like it's not really even family friendly at that point. So I
Right.
just like that is one aspect that I guess I draw the line because I am really big on family. I'm so family oriented, but I would say like that's a personality of myself that I guess I don't show that much just because it's like I don't know, I don't want people like googling my mom or something.
Yeah. I know a couple of years ago, are you familiar with incel culture, like incel people?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Oh my God. A couple of years ago, incels were supposedly like going on a rampage by finding OnlyFans creators' personal Facebook accounts and finding their dad and like screenshotting their OnlyFans content and then DMing it to these content creators' dads and saying, "Oh, is this your daughter?" So, fortunately, that's never happened to me, but has anybody ever tried to blackmail you like that?
No, unfortunately, like not that has not happened to me, but that is so insensitive and so heartbreaking to hear that.
Yeah, I don't know how frequently that happens anymore. I think that that was around the time that I just deleted my Facebook page because it was 2020 and there was a lot of
Yeah.
turmoil on the internet.
Yeah, yeah, that's concerning.
So you started modeling in 2019 and in 2020 there was the pandemic.
Yes.
So you've made all these publications in between your start and now, but I'm sure the pandemic has had an effect on your career.
So funny enough, the pandemic actually, like in a weird way, boosted my career because, like, if you think about it, during the pandemic, everybody left LA. Like, they left LA in droves. I was one of those people too, but like, I wasn't leaving for good. I just for like a couple months, me and my boyfriend went to Arizona just to stay with our parents, because we didn't know like what the world was turning into. But then around like June of 2020, we came back to LA. It was a ghost town. There was no one here. It was so weird. But like because everyone had this free time and there was no one in the city, like model mayhem for LA was jumping. I got booked like before the pandemic, I did not consider myself a full-time model. I was also a nanny. I would just tell people I was a nanny. Like when people would be like, "What do you do for work?" I'm like, "Oh, I nanny," because like I would only model like part time, like only like a couple shoots a month. So I'm like, yeah, I nanny. Like I just model on the side. But then the pandemic happened, and it was more like, "Oh, I model and I nanny on the side," because there was just so many people here, and they just had so much free time. And if you remember, the stimulus checks were floating around the economy. Like people were getting unemployment, so there was a lot of money going around here, and I was booked so much in the pandemic, and a lot of people would ask me too. They're like, "Oh, I bet the pandemic like hurt your booking or whatever." I'm like, actually, no. Like I'm booked more now than ever, actually. So it was an interesting time,
Oh.
and it worked in my favor for sure.
That's crazy. I know that some cities seemed to be more locked down than others, but there was always people that were willing to like, take a chance. It was definitely a tense time for me. Like I was worried and I was getting those COVID tests where they shove a tooth like a stick
Yeah.
into your face by 6 inches and they scrape your brain, and I was doing that in the beginning of the pandemic before I got vaccinated finally. But yeah, no, that's cool that you got so many bookings around that time.
Yeah, that was a strange time.
The benefit for me on the pandemic was more people were sitting on their computers on the internet isolating themselves, so they were like subscribing to my subscription sites like Patreon and OnlyFans. And after the pandemic kind of waned down, I found that those people that were sitting on their computer subscribing, they left, or they
Oh
lost.
no.
Not all of them, but I definitely noticed that the pandemic increased the amount of activity that I had there significantly.
Mm. Yeah, I in hindsight, because I just started my site, my OnlyFans like a year ago. I do wish I started earlier because I'm like, whoa, I bet in the pandemic, like this must have been crazy for creators. Like it must have been a good time.
So, since you were in Playboy, I know that Playboy has OnlyFans competitor website. Like, I forget, is it Playboy Plus, or there's some kind of an OnlyFans type social platform where you can make money? Or do you have one of those accounts?
Yeah, and I totally forget what it's called too. I think it's called like Playboy something. They do have a Playboy Plus, but like that's the thing that you have to get scouted for. I was in that and you have to get scouted for that. It's not like it's not creator based. Like that's through Playboy. But yeah, they have another app that like is creator based like OnlyFans. And I do use it, but my only complaint with that, it's not that user friendly and not that many people are on it, and I'm not sure like how explicit you can get on that because one time I posted like some BDSM stuff with me and another model and they took it down and I was like,
Oh,
oh. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what the guidelines are here, but I'm like, okay, I'm just not gonna use this anymore because I don't, you know how it feels like getting an account suspended or deleted or banned. Like
yeah.
it sucks. And it's like all that work and time I just put into that for you to take it all away. So
Tell me about it. Yeah, that's definitely an ongoing theme with every podcast episode I do is getting deplatformed from various platforms.
yeah, I saw that recently you got deplatformed from YouTube. Were you able to get that back or?
No, I had that channel since 2009 too, so it had a lot of memories on it. And I have most of those files still like on various hard drives, but it's
Yeah.
still a huge bummer that it's not like on the internet anymore. But
Why did they take it down?
so I had strikes in the past, and for anybody that's listening that doesn't know YouTube's content strike policy, supposedly you're supposed to be able to get 3 strikes and then you're out. So a strike means that you posted something that was against the rules, and they'll take the video down and they'll give your channel a strike. And each strike fades off of your account after 90 days. And I didn't have any active strikes at all for like years. I've had strikes in the past, but I hadn't had any strikes or any content taken down for a long time. I posted a video that was like a posing demonstration in little booty short panties and a crop top where I was posing on the bed. And it was mostly just posing. So yeah, there were some gratuitous poses, but I was fully clothed, by YouTube standards. And they just took my whole channel down with no warnings or no strikes. And I contested it repetitively, and I even went to the Reddit support team and the Twitter support team, and I talked to humans, and they all said, nope, sorry, this was a severe violation, and you've had violations in the past, and they're, I guess, just overlooking this three strike policy because they said the video was that severe. And
What? Because
I
I've
know.
seen worse on YouTube. I've seen nipples on YouTube.
What? Yeah, you can technically you can put nudity or even sheer tops on YouTube if you mark it as 18 plus, and if it's a how-to video or if it's like
Uh-huh.
documentary style, you can post that. I used to even have nude yoga videos on YouTube, but
Right.
they just get stricter and stricter, and I think that maybe a human did look at my account and they might have seen videos that I posted like 5 to 8 years ago that are no longer, terms of service, but at the time
Oh,
that I
because they
posted them, they
changed.
were. So I don't know. I never really got a straight answer. They never even said that it was that video that got me taken down. But that was the last thing that I posted, and the next day my channel was gone. So
All right.
it
I'm so
sucked.
sorry.
I know. It's okay. I will eventually start a new YouTube account. I just, you know, moving through life, I'm severely butthurt about it.
Yes, no, getting banned from like things or getting your stuff taken down, it's so annoying. Like that's happened to me like 4 times on TikTok.
Oh yeah, your whole account taken down?
Yeah, they just permanently banned that. Same with Twitter too. They have taken me down as well, which
What?
I was surprised by Twitter. Yeah, it is a long story. I can get into it. So like I made because I used to have a personal Twitter account that I had since I was like a kid, since like 2011. And so when I started nude modeling, I was like, I don't want to subject my friends and family to what I'm about to post. So I'm going to make another account. So I made another account. And where I messed up was I did not know you can't have like nudity in the header or your profile picture. And I wasn't even nude. I was really like scantily clad though, basically nude. And I didn't know that. Like, I guess I should have read the, the stuff. But yeah, they warned me. They warned me like 2 or 3 times. But yeah, I guess I didn't put it together. So they, after like the third or fourth time, they were just like, "We're taking your account," and they took it, and then they took my other one from 10 years ago. Like, and I was just like, "What? That's my
Oh,
personal account." Like, and I did. I even went to the BBB and like emailed them, and I'm like, they wrongfully took my account, but yeah, nothing came of it, and it was just gone. And I was like, wow. But in hindsight, like I mentioned, that account was like it was like my personal account, and it was like kind of people were like finding out that it was like me, like the model. So I'm actually glad that it got deleted in hindsight because I did have pictures of like my family and like my niece on that account. If you like scrolled down
yeah,
far enough, so I'm like, maybe that's just like a blessing in disguise that that is wiped from the internet
yeah.
because maybe I don't want that out there. It was really personal. So
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but,
yeah, lesson learned. I made a new Twitter. It's fine.
yeah, Twitter's a tough one. I think that it's changing all the time, especially now that it's under new management. And I'm not even sure
Hmm.
about it anymore, but
Yeah, I feel like we're in the last of the Twitter days, but it's a great marketing
yeah.
app. Their internal traffic is amazing there.
Yeah, so that's why it's worth having for
Hmm.
driving traffic still. So I'm on it. I should put more effort into it, but
Yeah, I follow you on Twitter. I was like, oh, I love her.
thanks. Okay, so I have a question that I want to ask that I ask everybody on the show. So we're completely changing topics now. Sorry to reroute. It's called the photo shoot fail of the week. Basically, if you have any story of a crazy photo shoot, whether because the photographer themselves was crazy or perhaps the situation surrounding the photo shoot was crazy, I would like to hear one or more of your craziest photo shoot stories.
Yes, I have this crazy one. I think this happened in like March of this year, and that setting is really important. So, like around, I think it was earlier this year in LA, I don't know if you remember, it like snowed a little bit. It was so cold, and it had like snowed in like Topanga Canyon. Like it was really weird because it never snows in Los Angeles. So there was this photographer who I had been following for a while. We were mutuals, and he's an amazing photographer. He has like great images and just like really makes really good images. So he reached out to me. Oh, and he does these like crazy group shoots where it's like a lot of people and it's like everybody's naked, but it's like super cool and artistic. And he reached out to me, and it was like a last minute thing because it had just snowed and nobody expected it to snow. So he was like, "Hey, like tomorrow morning we're gonna go shoot in the snow. I'm trying to like, get as many people as I can to go do this nude shoot in the snow. Like it's like not like once in a lifetime, but it's like, it never snows in LA. So I think it'd be really cool to like capture that and the beauty or whatever." So I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." Like love his images, never met them in real life. So, I'm just winging it. And it was a trade shoot because there was like over 20 people at the shoot. It's more like an artistic thing. But that should have been my first like red flag. It was a trade shoot. But I'm like, okay, like I don't really do trade shoots, but also my best friend who is a art news model, she was like gonna do it as well. So, when it's your friend, it's like, okay, I'll do it if you do it. So we go to the shoot and we did have to drive pretty far out of the city because we had to like get, in the more like naturey area. I want to say it was like an hour drive. And the first red flag was like we were driving to someone where there was no service because it's nature and we were all speaking to each other through Instagram.
Oh.
And so yeah, like me and my bestie, we were like, we're on the way, like chatting in the Instagram group message, and then we were like putting in the coordinates, and we're driving up, and we're like driving, and we're like, hey, like there's no service, like how are we gonna reach everyone to like meet them? And then we get to one part of like the mountain, and then the road is just straight up closed because of the snow. Like the government probably knew, like, oh, people are gonna try to complain of the snow and it's dangerous. So the road was like closed. So we were like, oh my goodness, like there's no service. The road is closed. Like, how are we supposed to tell these people that the road is closed? Because I think we were the first ones there. And so we had to turn around until we got service. And then we messaged them. We're like, hey, the road is closed. And so we all met up at somewhere else. And then we went to a different spot. And that was kind of like the first, like, oh my gosh, like the shoot is like uncoordinated and crazy. Like they didn't even scout the location really. And so we finally get to a location and there's like two photographers, the one that like I had been in contact with, and then another one. And then the other one was just like it was a nude shoot and it's cold, mind you. So it's like March time, it's spring and it's really cold for LAers because, you live in the West Coast, like it never gets cold here. But
Yeah.
like we're in our coats and one of the photographers is just straight up like, okay, get naked. It's like they just like get naked now. And it's like, oh, okay. Like everybody just like starts like taking off their clothes. And I'm like, okay, like that, that was a little abrupt. Like, just get naked. You could be like, okay, we're gonna start shooting if you want to like take off your clothes or whatever. But it was just like, okay, we just all got naked, and it was kind of silent because like nobody. It was a big group shoot. Nobody really knew each other. So we're just doing that, and they're like telling us what to do. Like they wanted us to do some crazy shit, like fucking climb a tree. Like they wanted all of us to like make like a human ladder up to a tree. And I'm like, what? Like, this is
Wow.
so physically demanding. And we're butt ass naked, like trying to climb a tree. And, it's cold. So like there was that, like we all had to like do this human ladder tower thing up a tree. And it was nice because that time we had like the tree to like hold on to. So that was nice, and that was the beginning of it. But so we did the tree thing, and then they had us like walking back and forth like on this mountain, like just trying to create these like really artistic visuals. And in the end, the photos came out great, but like just like the way they were like going about it and like instructing us how to do it, it was so just like off putting, and it just like wasn't really like a warm environment, like literally and figuratively.
Uh,
And so then after the tree, they were like, okay, like the other photographer who I just met was like, okay, I want to shoot at another spot. Okay, everybody just follow me. And so we all just like following this person to the other spot. And then we start hiking up this really, really, really steep mountain, like with no warning. Like they weren't like, bring water bottles, bring snacks. Like we're doing like a 2 mile hike. Like they never said that. We were just like walking, and I'm realizing I'm like, we're like climbing up this steep mountain. And I have asthma, and it's like springtime, and that's usually when my asthma like flares up.
uh,
And I was like, I was like looking through my bag and I'm like, oh no, I left my inhaler in the car because I didn't know I was going on a 2 mile hike. Like my asthma isn't that bad, but it does flare up when I'm doing something really physical. And I was just like, there was like a point where we were like, 75% up the mountain. And I'm like, oh my goodness, my breathing is really bad right now. And my inhaler that's in the car is so far and I'm on top of this big mountain. If you could like do like a third story, perspective, it's like me on the mountain and the car like so far down, like at the bottom of the mountain and like me out of breath. So I like tell my best friend, I'm like, dude, my asthma is like acting up and my inhaler is in the car. And like I didn't want to like, I didn't know that it wasn't a really warm group setting. So like I didn't want to be like, oh, I can't breathe. I was like a little too shy to tell them that because I didn't want them to think like, I don't know, I was overreacting or like, oh, she can't hang or something. I'm not really sure what was going through my
Jeez.
head. But yeah, I was just like, I can't breathe. And then when it was like getting really bad, like almost to the point where I thought I was gonna have to get like a helicopter off the mountain.
Oh my
We
god.
finally got to the top and I was like trying to catch my breath and I'm just like, okay, I can't breathe. Like I can't shoot. Like I cannot breathe. Like I need my inhaler. So I was just straight up like, I think I'm gonna go back down the mountain. I hope I make it and I'm gonna go get my inhaler. And my friend ended up coming with me because she was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna let you go down there by yourself because what if something happened to you? Like what if I need to carry you basically?
Oh my
And I
god.
was just like, yeah. And like when we alerted the people, like the photographers, they were like just still like so nonchalant. Like they did not that they didn't care, but like they didn't really understand the urgency of what was going on. And they also didn't understand like when I was like, I wish you guys told me that we were gonna hike up a steep mountain, like for like 2 miles. Like I'm not in hiking shoes. Like I wasn't aware like that would be part of the shoot. And they were like so nonchalant. They're like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, maybe you could just go get your inhaler, hike back up, and keep shooting." And
Uh,
I'm like, "For free? Absolutely not!" Like, I was just
yeah.
like, "No." I'm like, once I make it down that mountain, I'm not coming back up. Like, I'm just not. And they were kind of like looking at me like, "Oh, are you serious? Like, you're not?" And I'm like, "I'm so serious." And like, I'm doing all this with like half a breath left. So, like, I get back down to the mountain and me and my friend are just like shook. We're like, they didn't offer us water. They didn't like they weren't like, are you okay? Like it was just like they're kind of just like, oh okay, like good luck with that, bye. And that
Uh,
was just like such a terrible shoot. And I'm like, how can people be like so organized and like disorganized and do that to people, especially like people who are working for free? It was crazy, but I still love that photographer and the work that they create, and they're beautiful images. But like, I'm like, never again. I would never shoot with that person again.
yeah. Having empathy on a snowshoot is really important.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had not a similar experience, but I have shot in the snow with a photographer who did not have the foresight to predict that I was going to get cold and stuff like that. So I feel your pain. That sucks. And the
Yeah.
2 mile hike. What the fuck? What were they
I
thinking? What if somebody
know.
died on their shoot?
That's what yeah, no, seriously, that's how I felt. Like there was times when I was going up the mountain without my inhaler, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, am I gonna make it? And it kind of like brought me back to like when my inner child, like when I was a kid and dealing with my asthma, like not really sure knowing like what asthma is exactly. Like you just can't breathe, and your parents tell you like have to take medicine. And I was just like, I felt like a little kid again, just like wheezing at recess. Like I'm like, oh no, like I'm nervous, like I can't breathe, and like yeah, and a lot of people who don't have asthma or know someone with asthma, they don't really understand. Like it's chill, but it's like not like I look fine, but I can't breathe, and people don't really realize that. Like,
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting thing to point out because a lot of times when photographers are worried about, like, oh, I want the model to have a good time at the shoot and I want them to feel comfortable, I think a lot of the times they're thinking about, oh, I don't want to appear creepy because if I'm being creepy, then that's going to make them uncomfortable. But there's other things besides creepiness that can make you really uncomfortable and like not having the wherewithal to, provide options to get warm or like do you need medication or like is this condition going to be challenging for you like those sorts of things all together like on top of being respectful and not creepy, make the model feel like good about the shoot. And so
Yeah.
if you feel like they're just kind of like not giving a shit about you as a human being, like they're just treating you like, oh, you are my subject and you are going to suffer at my expense for my art for free, like the audacity.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt. But now going forward, even in any group setting I'm in, like whether it's a shoot or even if it's a one-on-one, I do always just tell people, I'm like, hey, I have asthma, I have an inhaler, it's in my bag, it's red. If I can't reach it and need it, like that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like very clear now, and I just always have it on me because I'm like, that was terrible. Like,
And with freelancing also, there's not like L&I. There's not like insurance for us besides what we have as far as our own insurance. Like unless we have like some kind of an agreement that the photographer signs that says, if you put me through too harsh of conditions and I suffer and have to go to the hospital as a result, then you're liable. Like I've never had to like enact anything like that, but situations like the story you just told make me think about that more.
I know, yeah, it is kind of like a do at your own risk kind of career.
It's true. And even for photographers too, because sometimes a lot of photographers might be a lot older than us and might have more health complications. And there have been times where I was worried about the photographer's health, shooting outdoors or like going up a hill or upstairs or whatever. Like I've witnessed people looking like they might need medical attention at times.
Oh, definitely. I remember I was in Costa Rica shooting, and we were shooting at a river, and the rocks were so mossy. They were so mossy, and like I felt lucky that we were barefoot because you know how your foot has like that natural grip that just kind of doesn't make you slip on the
Yeah.
rock. The photographers, were in their hiking shoes, so they had no grip, and I felt so bad. Like some of them were like trying to shoot like on the rocks, but they were like so slippery, and I saw one fall, and I'm like, oh no, and like I'm like in the middle of the river like on a rock, so it's not like I could just like leap in and like go save him or anything. I'm just like shouting like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like it was so heartbreaking. I'm like, oh my goodness, ice that.
Yeah, I have witnessed a couple of photographer injuries as well. But yeah, it is definitely a do as your own risk thing. I've never witnessed or experienced anybody wanting to get legal about any kind of injury happening afterwards.
Yeah.
Fortunately, most people like that I've worked with, that I know, that other people have worked with, most people generally are understanding, like, oh, I'm responsible for my own accidents if I were to fall or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do feel like in the situation that you just described, where they gave you no details about what you were expected to do in advance, that I feel like that's definitely like putting you at risk. It's no longer. It felt like it was no longer we're all in this for each other type thing, and you are all being subjected to this environment where you didn't even feel comfortable saying that you couldn't breathe because
Yeah.
you didn't want to be the Debbie Downer or whatever.
Yeah.
That's messed up. Well, I'm glad that you got through it and that you survived. And I'm glad that in a way, I'm still glad that you didn't hike all the way back up to do that last shoot because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to either.
No, it was, yeah, not enjoyable. But the pictures came out great. What we did do, they were cool. It was different. It's nothing I posted, but it was cool. It's interesting experience.
That's cool. I mean, yeah, I'm glad that something visually good did come out of it. That's cool. But sometimes it's like you look at a cool picture and you wonder, like, what's the backstory? Like, what was really.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Like, I'm glad that I got to be a part of it and meet that photographer because their images are super cool. But yeah, it's like, okay, been there, done
Yes, you suffered that, and you
that.
check that off of your bucket list, and you don't have to do it again if you don't want to.
Yes, literally. That's how I see it.
Yeah, sometimes I see like a picture of a model like posing on some what look like sharp rocks,
Yeah,
I know sometimes those rocks are really hard to pose on, like laying on your back and stuff. So
they are. And models make it look so easy. I see that too. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how does she do that?
yeah, to somebody that's never laid nude on a sharp rock, sometimes it's pretty painful.
Like, yeah, it's like, what do you say it like that? It already sounds painful.
Yeah. I just got done posing on a bunch of rocks for the last couple of months, so it's definitely on my mind.
Yeah, when I'm doing art modeling like that out in nature, like I always remind myself, like, wow, you are born as a human with everything you need to survive the earth elements, kind of basically. Like the first humans, everyone was naked, and then our feet, we're supposed to walk barefoot on the earth, like our heels calloused, like stuff like that. So I always just try to remind myself, like capitalism has made me soft. So it's like,
True. I
you
think
can
about
do
that
this.
too. I think about that too actually. Like we get sunburned, we like get a headache and it ruins our day. We like bump our knee and it like messes up our day. Like could you imagine hunting for our own food? Like
Yeah, no, seriously.
yeah. And even like our sleeping conditions. Like I have to have a mattress that's the perfect softness and firmness and I have to have the pillow that's perfect for my neck. Otherwise, it ruins my whole day the next day. What did we
No,
do before?
seriously.
We like slept in caves before.
I know, or like even how we have like controlled temperature, like AC, like how when I sleep, I need it at 69 degrees, like period. Like if it is not at 69 degrees, like I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, it's hot. Like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, I have another question that I want to ask you that I also ask everybody on the show. I call it the rising phoenix moment in your life. Can you describe a situation where it could be related to your modeling or not, where you were faced with a challenge that you had to overcome? And this could be related to your career, it could be related to insecurities that you've had to overcome, but any kind of a challenge that you've had to surpass.
yes, well, mine would a challenge that I've had to overcome, and it has nothing to do with modeling, just self work and self improvement. But a big challenge I had to overcome was just like forgiving my mother just for like everything, like as a person, and just like healing that mother wound. Like
Wow.
I used to have a very difficult relationship with my mom growing up, and we didn't always see eye to eye, and honestly, we still don't. But I remember it came to a point in my life. I think about like I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago, where I just had this heaviness in my heart that I was just like carrying around. And it was at this point where I was like, no, I'm just not ever gonna be friends with my mom. Like I'm never gonna like my mom. I had decided that, but I just felt the heaviness from that. And I really just like sat with myself and I thought long and hard. And I was like, holding this grudge against your mother, like how is that gonna serve you in life? Like, how is that gonna play out? You meet new people and you're just like, oh, I don't talk to my mom, or like, stuff like that. I was just like, really, how is that going to serve you? And I realized I took a long, hard look at myself and I'm like, that is not going to serve me. Like, I should just forgive her, like, wholeheartedly, whether she ever apologizes or not. I should forgive her in my heart and not hold anything against her because she is just a human and she did the best that she could with, like, the cards that she was dealt. And when I chose not to hold that against her and like wholeheartedly forgive her and like for everything, it just felt like such a big weight lifted off my shoulders. Like I cried and I was just like, I love you, thank you, I forgive you, I'm sorry. Like I don't know if you're familiar with like Hono Opo, like that mantra, just I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Once
Hmm.
I went through that with my mom, just like within my own space and my own heart, it was crazy. I think like the next holiday was like Thanksgiving, and I had to spend it with my mom because like we were like in Texas and something had happened, and I was really dreading it. I'm like, oh no, like I have to spend Thanksgiving with my mom. But we spent Thanksgiving together and we really bonded, which was like a first. And then she randomly out of the blue just apologized to me for everything. And I was like,
Oh,
it was such an amazing moment. And I was really shocked. Like it brought me to tears, and I was like, "Mom, like I already forgave you in my heart, like, but I'm like just to hear it out of your mouth, like it was like such a beautiful thing." And since then, me and my mom, we have a great relationship. We still obviously have our disagreements, but we just agree to disagree. And I was just like so happy and proud of myself for that because as a kid, I always told myself like, "Oh, when I'm an adult, like I'm not going to talk to my parents anymore. I'm just going to be one of those people who just does their own thing. But as I was like getting older, like you realize how important and precious family is. Like even if like some things have happened that you didn't agree with, like in hindsight, like I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for my mother. She's an amazing, wonderful person, and I'm so glad I don't hold a grudge against her anymore.
Wow, that's really powerful. If you're not able to forgive, like even if it's not consciously, like there's resentment in your heart.
Yeah, there was a lot of resentment in my heart. And I just looked at, like, honestly, I did acid. And then I just sat and thought about like my mother. And then I thought about her mother. And then I thought about like my grandmother's mother, just like the generational. And it's like, okay, I wholeheartedly felt like if you want to change something, it's not going to be by like being mad or like being bitter. Like, if you want to change, like, you have to do it with love. That's the only way.
Wow, that's amazing. I haven't tripped on acid, but I have done mushrooms, which is kind of sort of similar as far as I'm told. And I have had the ability to be aware of myself from an outside perspective through doing that in the past. So I can see that it can be a helpful tool for like, becoming aware of things about yourself that perhaps you wouldn't have been if you didn't allow yourself to step outside yourself, I suppose.
I I totally agree. Before I did that, like I honestly, as a person, I didn't really think that deeper, and I also didn't. I was compassionate, like a little bit, but I found that after I started doing that, I just became more compassionate and empathetic, and just more like just human, unity, connection, like all that stuff. Just we are all one. Like we are all together in this. You know what I mean? It's not you and me. It's us.
I love that. It's true. It is true. And there are people out there that can't like see that like or feel that deep level, but it's because they haven't been shown that path yet, not because they don't have the capacity for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like that's exactly like how I felt, honestly. After my first trip, I was like, "Whoa, I know some things that a lot of people don't know. It's a whole new world."
That's so cool. Wow, I think it's so amazing like how much success you've had in just the last few years, even like though that there was a pandemic that halted a lot of people's success, you were able to persevere through that and actually like make a lot of what a lot of people say are bucket list items for them, like getting publications and companies that are big like Playboy and then working in music videos for like big mainstream music artists. Like you've done so much cool stuff, but you're still this down to earth person, who like reaccepted your mom back into your heart and like is able to mend all these. So that's part of the reason I like doing all these podcast episodes is because it shows the depth of the person that's behind the images that they share. You get to know somebody more, and all of us models on the internet, we all have personalities, we're not just pictures.
That is very true, and I really appreciate your podcast for that. I've listened to a couple episodes of like some of my other friends. Like I listened to Taylor May's episode,
Oh,
which was so good and just so eye-opening. And I'm like, wow, I really like your podcast. It's amazing. You're doing a
thank
great
you.
job.
I love Taylor. She's awesome. She has some crazy stories that I was like gasping at with my jaw dropping. It's like, really? He did that? Let's go beat his ass.
I know, and her podcast episode was like just so insightful. Like the thing where she was like, I just went along with it because like if you act scared or anything, like that's literally like how like something bad happens. And I'm like, whoa, like that is so wise.
Yeah, yeah, true that. Yeah. Yeah, I fortunately haven't had to deal with that as much in the last few years, but I think unfortunately a lot of models in the first, few years of their modeling especially end up, having to escape some weird.
Most definitely. But yeah, as you get older, they like you start to see the red flags. You're like, oh, I've been in this before. Like, no way.
Yeah, yeah. And today, with the modeling industry and the community itself, there's so many more models that are actually talking to each other. In like 2008, it was not like that. People were not helping each other out. It was a lot harder to get that kind of help from anybody. You had to really prove yourself.
Like hazing.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose
Hmm.
getting hazed or even feeling like you're being excluded.
Yeah, because I feel like people feel like, oh, it happened to me, so like it should happen to you. It'll toughen you up or something. But no,
Yeah, I think that's wrong though. I think
I
that
do too.
if there are people that you could, make aware, like look out for this guy, don't shoot with him, or be aware this person's going to push your limits or whatever. I think we should all talk to each other about that. And I'm
I
glad that
totally agree.
yeah, I'm glad that it's moving more into that direction now.
Yes, it is awesome. I'm really thankful for like how we met at Muses and like that group chat because it wasn't until then that like I started chatting with other models like about things, and like getting references and stuff like that. It's been awesome and it's made me feel like a lot more safe.
That is awesome. And there is community and people do I think people do legitimately want to help each other out now where it's not just like, you're doing it for brownie points. I think people are like legitimately wanting to make the industry better and safer.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right, well, we're near our hour. I would like to ask if there's anything else you wanted to bring up before we close.
No, I can't believe an hour has already passed. This has been an amazing discussion. I love this. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll be sure to include links to your stuff, like your social media website if you have one, in the show notes.
Oh, yes. And I would like to say something. I did just start a YouTube channel
Yeah.
and it's super fun. It's at Miss Dakota Simone. Check it out if you're listening.
Yeah, I'll include that in the show notes also. I would love to see your YouTube. I need to get remotivated to start a new channel myself.
Yes, that's why I was asking about it because I just started it like on the 6th of this month and I posted my first video last week. And I was like, I saw you posting about your YouTube when you would like post your videos and I would subscribe to you. And I'm like, oh, I want to start my YouTube soon.
Cool. I'm glad that we can inspire each other.
Yeah.